Sloan on the big one, 700 WLW. 86% of Americans disapprove of Congress. They have, are you ready for this, a 10% approval rating. Find me someone who keeps their job if they're good at it 1 out of every 10 times. And what's going on now, too, we have this fight over the SAVE Act, which is showing a photo ID when you vote, which most of us agree, like, okay, I got to show an ID for everything else, big deal. 3 out of 4 of us support that. So if this so why is the SAVE Act stalled completely? These are, it's low-hanging fruit. This is a layup. These are easy points if you remember Congress. His name is James Dickson. He's a political strategist and founder of Make Politics Local Again, which I agree with. James Dickson, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, good morning, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I want to find out what's driving this whole thing. So citizen-only voting, it's like 70-30 here in Ohio. I know you're in Michigan, and it's 80-20 there. Across the country, 60% of more of Americans believe that absolutely should show an ID. Like I said, I got to show an ID for everything else. Why not show an ID when I vote?
Right. And we've actually had this happen in Michigan in 2024, in October, right before the election. A man named Ho Ching Gao, an Ann Arbor, University of Michigan student, and a Chinese national voted, and his vote counted. That triggered a partial review, that found at least 15 more. So this is actually something that's happening in Michigan, and that's why people are fired up for it.
Yeah, I think there it's a big deal. Here in Ohio, we tend to vote red. And for me, I was like, okay, I don't think it's a big deal, as I said. However, I think it's interesting what's driving it. If you look at generally, and I'm talking not just Michigan, Ohio, but all 50 states, right. Nearly 6 million votes cast in Ohio in 2020. 27 were found to have been cast illegally. In most states, including Michigan, that's the issue. It's only a handful of people. Now, should they be voting? No, but it seems like not only do we find them, but if the whole impetus for protecting and saving just say, you got to show an ID. I don't have a problem why. I think both sides can kind of be a little bit deceiving when it comes to reasons why. Democrats don't want it because there's disenfranchisement there, but you're not disenfranchising people. So I think both sides can be wrong.
I think both sides can be wrong, but I think this is such a universal issue because for every person like Ho Ching Gao who does vote and their vote counts, effectively this cancels out someone's legitimate vote. So if people say, oh, it's only a handful, the number really should be 0. And what people find alarming in Michigan is that our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, who, by the way, is running for governor right now, after discovering this illegal vote, never did anything to shut the door. So 10,000 other people could do the same thing. And if they don't turn themselves in, they'll probably never be caught.
Well, there should be 0. Yeah, there should be no murders. Democrats are good at pushing that too. It's like, no child. We're going to save every child. We got to save all the children. What about the children? If one child, it's like you're going to have, statistically speaking, not to be cold, that is going to happen. Can this entirely be prevented though by having someone show their ID? I'd contend if you really want to get around the system, you probably can, but it's not enough really to influence the vote.
That's why the other piece of it is proof of citizenship to be able to register to vote. So this kid, Gao, he registered. So we have same-day registration in Michigan. You register, you vote right away.
Yeah.
And then if you do early voting as opposed to absentee, they just run your ballot right then and there. They don't wait till election day. And so, that's why this guy had to self-report the thing.
Yeah.
And so any system that requires people to, outside of a pickup basketball game at the Y, anything that calls on people to be honest and self-report things, you're basically begging for trouble at this point. And to have that happen and not do any reform, it makes you wonder why that would be.
Do we know why this guy voted? Or what his impetus was? Because, often with conservatives, the argument is Democrats oppose the SAVE Act because it benefits non-citizen voting, which theoretically tend to go towards Democrats. It's a pretty serious charge. And there's certainly no act of collusion here. It's not like the Chinese government is behind this. It's more of an individual. And a lot of the cases that we found turns out to be they've got bad information at the polling places as well. The whole same-day voting thing in Michigan is puzzling to me, but that's your state. That's how you run things. It's different in all 50 states.
Yeah. So, we got a lot of documents about this. And basically what he told investigators is he kind of viewed himself as a trans-American at that moment. He said, hey, I have a green card, my family and me have been here quite a while. we pay taxes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he chose to identify as an American in that moment. He was not 1 inch confused. And what I find concerning about this and the way the story was reported, so this is the one we know about. Xi Jinping himself could send 100,000 more Ho Chingaos to Michigan, and they could vote, and those votes would count. And just like in this case, they would only be caught if they were to self-report. So we don't have systems that prevent the fraud from ever happening. And no one has interest in developing them.
James, I got to say, that's a lot of work. You have 100,000 Chinese nationals to send on Michigan to vote. That's a lot of work for a little outcome.
Oh, I think the outcome is well worth it. I mean, so we're a swing state in presidential races. You all used to be. Now you're solidly red. Hopefully Michigan can get there. And so if you can create distrust and discord in America, I think that would be a worthy goal for an adversary. And my question
it's not
is,
like if you did that, I'm saying is that people would if you said 100,000, 10,000 for the matter, there would definitely be someone noticing that conspiracy was happening. It's just so extremely difficult, and it's also visible too. This is why it wouldn't work.
Oh, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work. I mean, we're all so accepting of everything, right? And if you say you're an American, you're an American. And the problem is there is no standard of proof that would prevent 100,000 people from doing it. 10,000, 10, or even 1. There's no standard, and that's the problem. This is systematic, and it was made this way for a reason and not no reason.
Are Michiganders upset about this enough to maybe change Secretary of State or demand that things be tightened up in that state?
Yeah, there's actually a constitutional ballot issue that they just turned in their signatures. They're looking to get those certified. That would have voter ID. We have a voter ID amendment, but there's such a big loophole that you effectively don't need voter ID in Michigan and citizens-only voting. And so it would do both of those things. And so this would actually close the door on the Ho Chingaos of the world.
Yes, it's 80-20 where you are, 70-30 here in Ohio and Kentucky and Indiana as far as people agreeing that, showing ID is not that big a deal. I just don't think the reason why, the remedy, of course, is because we could have 100,000 Chinese nationals fly to America, immigrate here, and all live in Michigan and vote in Wayne County and throw the election, which seems kind of far-fetched anyway as far as a working plan, in my opinion. But, having people present an ID is really not that big an ask. The Democrats, you ask them, and it's the worst thing ever because it's about the old adage about voter suppression, which is it's a canard anyway. And at least here where I live, we have a 30-day window, James, to vote. It's easier than ever before to cast a vote. In 30 days, you can have the ballot mailed to your house. If you care to engage, I think a lot of these folks want people showing up, knocking on doors, saying, hey, don't forget to vote. Here's the ballot. Bring it to you. I mean, you do have to engage in the system. That would include getting an ID and being aware it's actually election day and giving a damn enough, which you don't have to, by the way. Maybe just people just don't care. And maybe this is why reflected in the 10% approval rating for Congress. But I think a lot of these folks would want to show up to doors and knock and have them vote right there because they're demanding a vote as opposed to someone actually wanting to vote. It's an entirely different thing. I don't buy the disenfranchisement thing, though, especially with women. And that's the thing is this. Somehow this affects women more than men. It's called, what's it called, pink slipping or something like that? Pink washing.
Right. Nobody's being disenfranchised. And if anyone is being disenfranchised, if I say non-citizens should not vote and you say people are being disenfranchised, I can infer from that the hope is for you that non-citizens would vote. And that's essentially what Jocelyn Benson is doing. And so what you look at, when you look at the form and function of how they talk about this is Democrats' final frontier. And so the good thing for Republicans is that, yes, the party is less engaged. Yes, people tend to only vote every 4 years and not on May and August millages. But that also means they have so much upside. If you turn those normal disengaged people into regular voters, what would be the Democrats' next move?
James Dickson is a political strategist out of Michigan. He's the founder of Make Politics Local, again, author of Who's Afraid of Citizen-Only Voting, and talking about the SAVE Act, which would require a photo ID. And Michigan is a bit of a problem because you have a number of people who were voting in the last election cycle that were non-residents, and Michigan's got to tighten their stuff up. Here in Ohio, it's a very, very small percentage. I think we investigated 6, if I'm not mistaken, and there are 633 suspected voter cases, and prosecutors only took up 12. because there was nothing there for the 600 plus. Of those, 6 cases resulted in indictments, 1 involving a person who already died. But it looked like that was more of a clerical error than anything. So Ohio, we run pretty good elections here, I think. We don't have to worry about it. But you in Michigan and maybe Florida and other states, there's problems. I mentioned the pink washing argument, and I saw this happen when, family members get married. Women can't prove their citizenship after a name change because, well, they keep their maiden name. They're married now and assume the other name, but they don't go through it's like getting the photo ID. You got to get the paperwork done to make sure that your name is reflected on your documents. This isn't disenfranchisement. I'm sorry. This is just people going, I guess I forgot it. It's like renewing your driver's license. I forgot. And then you get stopped and you're like, hey, your license expired. Well, that's on you. It's not on some sort of allegation about a crooked system, bias against women. That's insane.
I mean, hey, they are women. Hear them roar, right? I have no reason to doubt the abilities of women to figure it out and get it done if they value voting and using their voice as a citizen.
Right.
There needs to be offers of proof. I mean, you check into a hotel, you need ID. I once tried to send a piece of mail at UPS. They wanted ID for that. I was paying. Why do you need to know who I am? Right?
Yep.
It's just how America works. Except for voting, that is the last thing I would let be left to the voter. Can't have an honor system in dishonorable times.
Well, you need ID for everything. You need to get a phone. Every transaction. You're traveling. It's like we're in a more mobile society. I mean, back in the day when we were largely agrarian and worked in rural, you didn't need that. You didn't need to present who you are. But everyone's all over all the time. At some point, you need to show who you are. Cashing a check or whatever it might be. I don't understand why. I guess I understand. But if you choose not to engage or at least get a government issued ID, that's not some sort of bias or some sort of reason to prevent you from voting. It's like you just got to go get a photo ID. You got to do other stuff. If you register for, government benefits, they need to know who you are. It's along the same lines. It's really not a high hurdle to jump in 2026. The other element of this is, we have a very contentious midterm coming up. And I think, obviously what drives the paranoia here is Republicans on the right want to prevent people who shouldn't vote from voting. And that is almost largely happening across America, maybe save Michigan, but that's a couple handful of cases. On the other side, it's Democrats screaming about disenfranchisement. We hear this every election cycle. What's new about this?
I think what's new about it is that, going into 24, right? Benson, just a month before Ho Ching Gao, she testified before Congress. She talked about non-citizen voting like it was the Loch Ness Monster, but like it was a myth or a fable. And, and for years she had cited this Brennan Center study that said, hey, we looked at the 2016 election and we only found, 30 legal votes out of 24 million. Okay, and then you found more than half of that in a single cycle in a single state in 2024. The math ain't mathing. This and then only doing a partial review after finding the illegal vote tells me that Benson does not want to know the scale of the problem. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the form and function of this, chief election officers should be first on the wall saying we need higher standards.
No question.
Instead, they're fighting against them. Why would they do that?
James, I look at this complex issue and go, and I know this is what you're about, make politics local. Again, this is the problem. We turned politics into a national sport, right? It's like people root for their red or blue teams like they do a football team. Like you're into, like Tigers v. Reds, Bengals v. Lions, right?
Michigan, Ohio State.
Yeah, Michigan, Ohio State. Sure, absolutely. As opposed
red
to
versus blue.
The thing that matters most is the local elections. In fact, actually way more than the national elections. And I'm talking not only local politicians who represent you, but also at the state level. And they control your money, they control your taxation and all these things, not to mention the local levies and issues like that on the ballot. That's the important stuff, but yet we focus on the national politics more than the local politics. I think that's kind of backwards. I think we got to get back to making politics boring again is what we need to do.
We have it exactly backwards. The real problems and the real power are all found in state and local politics. As we see when you look at Washington and Congress, that's a bad TV show. But if you want to see actual politics where things can change, that's the state and local level. One thing I'm working on right now in Michigan is this idea of no May millage.
Yep.
And so basically, if you want to raise my property taxes, you need to ask me in November when most people who do vote. if you ask me in May or August, I can infer that you're trying to be deceptive and hoping to catch me slipping and not voting. And so it's just a dishonest by routine. And so if we can just change the political calendar to where these big money decisions are made in November and we show up, we could have a different place where citizens lead, not politicians.
Isn't this exactly the problem in Michigan that you're complaining, James, about election law in your state, in the great state of Michigan, and it's the Secretary of State. And we're focused on the presidential and who's in the White House and Congress. And, wait a minute, what about you put the Secretary of State in there? Is that what most Michiganders want? But the polls show that 80-20 say we want the SAVE Act to go into effect in Michigan, and yet the politicians do the exact opposite. And then you look at the voting, and chances are that same Democrats are going to get elected in Michigan, aren't they?
The Democrats have shown that they are completely disconnected from what people want. Think about the TV ad that probably stealed it for Trump in 24. Kamala is for they, them, Trump is for you. The Democrats have made a cottage industry out of picking the 10 side on the 90-10 issues and then trying to ram things through no matter what the people want. We have to get back to the very basic idea of consent of the governed, which means the governed need to start stepping up and being involved, not just on Election Day, but also holding officials to account once they're placed in office.
I'll say it's also because you're in a blue state, I'm in a red state. That here in Ohio, the same thing. You said something that's very true. Before I let you go here, James, that they get in office, they do what they want. We have that problem here in Ohio with the Republicans and Governor Mike DeWine, who single-handedly is now going to sink sports betting like DraftKings and Betfred and Bet365 and all those platforms because he doesn't like it. Yeah. He's single, and the legislature is going to go along with it. We have a proposal that's going to literally ban, in effect, sports wagering in Ohio. Can't bet on college, no more parlays, no more in-game bets, none of that whatsoever. If you go to a casino, you can only bet $100 a hand and only 8 times. So you're only allowed to lose or wager $800 in the casino. So it's the same thing happening here in conservative Ohio that's happening in Democrat-controlled Michigan. James Dickson, political strategist, founder of Make Politics Local. Again, James, enjoy the convo. Thanks again.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it.
All the best. And